When Resident Evil 9 came out a couple weeks ago, this video was actually originally going to be a response to Griffin Gaming. And for those of you that are not new to the channel, you know how big of a moron that guy is. This man blatantly lies about the game. He displays the
I lie about it. How do you lie in a review?
Is this serious?
But I watched his video and I thought, you know, it's actually tamer than like his usual stuff. You know, he was saying things like, this isn't for me, but if it's for you, then it's probably gonna be good for you. And I was like, I had to check that I was to make sure that I was watching the right person. So I said, you know what, let's not do this video. And I went searching for some more videos. And that brings us to the video we're responding to today. A video from a channel named Type 2 Productions, who may or may not have stolen my thumbnail, but that's besides the point. But this video is titled Resident Evil Requiem is Painfully Mediocre. Now, this video is an hour long, and I'm not going to be responding to all of it, but I do want to respond to the part of their video where they talk about the story. Now, the gameplay, they do have some criticisms there that I do disagree with, but ultimately a lot of their gameplay critiques just come down to, I personally feel, is personal preference. But if you guys want it, you know, maybe I'll make a part 2 to this and respond to the rest of their critique video. But I want to talk about the story thing because there are a couple criticisms that they bring up that I agree with, even if I don't think they're that big of a deal. And they will mention some things that I also mentioned in my Resident Evil Requiem review where I talked about some problems with the story. But with all that context laid out, let's begin.
But now let's hit on a really big section and probably one of my major issues with this game. The story and characters are so completely beyond retarded, it's hard to put into words.
We're gonna catch hell for this section, but I'm here for the smoke because this story sucks.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that?
We're introduced to Grace by the game showing us that she's an FBI agent who also serves as a tech analyst, and her director sends her to the Wrenwood Hotel to investigate a string of strange murders. And this guy is aware that 8 years ago, Grace's mother was murdered right in front of her at this very hotel, and he opts to send her there. I mean, this girl is a stuttering, nervous wreck throughout the whole game. And this man decides to send her there and send her alone.
It's to the point he's either literally working for the villain, which we never see any evidence of.
Let me stop you right there. I do think this point is interesting, like worth talking about, because it's something I questioned as well in my first playthrough, even though I wasn't too concrete on my critique of it, and that's for a couple reasons. Number one, the part about him sending her to the same place where her mother died, despite there being a conflict of interest, I think that part of it can easily be defended by just her simply being a product of the fact that she's been following these strings of murders. Like, we literally see her writing a report on previous murders, or they're not even murders really, they're just deaths from people dying to the T-virus or the Raccoon City infection or the Umbrella Curse, whatever you want to call it. But there is heavy implications that the Connections, which is basically like the big group pulling all the strings in this game, have their hands in major agencies across the world. And while they don't explicitly tell you that the FBI is like under their control, we know that they do have people in the department. They have people taking pictures of Grace, monitoring her movements, and as Victor says, it was part of a plan. And as we can see later in the game at the ARC facility, it was part of their plan to get Grace on this case. So I don't really think it's too out of the realm of possibility when looking at the files and the documents and the things that you know, the thing you see at the end of the game on the ARC screen, that the Connections were the reason for this happening. I won't give the story too much credit because this could have been explained a little bit better, maybe just by an explicit statement that, you know, they were the reason this happened instead of it being so subtle. But I do think we have enough here to make the interpretation that, yeah, this wasn't just the director being stupid, that this was planned. I'm not saying that he was literally forced to put Grace on this case, but I do think it's fair to make the interpretation that there was some kind of influence there. But furthermore, to add on to the point, he doesn't even send Grace there alone. There's literally a cop at the crime scene with her, you know, like normally there would be. And he also not only gives her the choice, he says you don't have to go if you don't want to, but he also thinks it'll be healthy for her to confront her past so that this is not reeling on her forever. So again, while I do think this could have been written maybe a little bit better, I don't really think there's enough here to make it some massive issue with the story.
The FBI in this game's DEI department worked overtime getting him and Grace on board here.
What the fuck are you talking about?
We find out that Victor, the main villain, planted that body to lure Grace to the hotel. When she arrives, we see the flashback of her mother's murder, and it truly plays out in the stupidest way possible, because whenever the lights go out, they're attacked by this man, but Grace's mom shoots their attacker. Unfortunately for them, this guy later comes back, and I kid you not, silently teleports behind Grace's mom, kills her, and then instantly dies and falls crashing into a table with a lantern on it that sets the hotel on fire.
Yeah, he can magically silently teleport and survive multiple gunshot wounds just long enough to complete his objective, and then he just peaced out.
Okay, first of all, there's literally a bar right next to him that the guy could have, crouched behind and waited for them to turn around before he runs up, not teleports, runs up and stabs her in the neck, or slashes her neck, as to avoid just running at them head on and getting shot again. Also, we know these people are, somewhat superhuman when they're infected by this virus, so him moving that fast shouldn't really come as a surprise. But also, in regards to him, silently moving, I guess, Grace is literally, screaming, pretty much, and her mom is trying to calm her down. Obviously, they're not going to hear him until it's too late.
That further begs the question. I mean, we know Victor sent this assassin, but why would he even send him? I mean, why kill the one person who has info that you want and potentially kill the girl who you believe to be the key of everything? I mean, in an in-game file called the Disposal Team Report, you find evidence that the zombie in the beginning was an assassin. And again, this begs so many questions. There's an in-game file that reveals that Victor knew about Grace's existence since 2004. So knowing what he knows, Victor decided to wait 14 years to then randomly murder Grace's mom, and then doesn't even bother to kidnap her until another 8 years later when he randomly decides to renew his pursuit.
Okay, first of all, there's a very clear reason why Victor has Alyssa assassinated. It's because she was investigating what was going on at the clinical care center. And also, what you just said, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but this is not true. He did not know that Grace was this child that he's been looking for. He didn't know that until the events of this game, and he says this multiple times.
I know now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one. The chosen one, Miss Ashcroft. All tests have come back positive. I can confirm that she is indeed the one that we've been searching for.
He got Grace's medical records from what Spencer already had on Grace because, she was his child, but he was not aware that Grace Ashcroft was this specific child that he's been looking for until the events of this game.
I still don't even know how Victor found out about Elpis or Grace in the first place. We're told in the game that Oswald Spencer never told anyone about Grace but Alyssa.
First of all, what you just said is not true. I even went back through the files in the game and parts of the story, and I couldn't find a single part where it says that Spencer never told anyone that Grace existed. I mean, we literally see a scientist bring Grace into Spencer in the scene where he's holding her. And while Victor didn't know specifically that Grace was the child that he's been looking for, he eventually figured it out, who she was, who this adopted child was, who the genetic information that he got from was.
It took forever to find you.
Why me?
Because my master made you who you are.
But as for Victor finding out about Elpis, the game literally shows you who went through Spencer's research and found it. And also, they found the ARC facility where Elpis is literally stored. What do you mean?
I actually went on the Resident Evil wiki, and they claim that Victor was a researcher that worked under Spencer at one time, and that his reason for killing Grace's mom is that she was investigating his Elpis experiments at his clinic. But the wiki sources Alyssa's journal for this, and it only shows that she noticed Victor stalking her, not that she was ever investigating him.
I'm sorry, but this might possibly just be the single stupidest thing you say in this video. Brother, first of all, it literally says, finished some research and stopped in a cafe when I noticed a hooded man. I could have sworn he was watching me. First of all, it tells you she's researching something. It also tells you that she's being hunted by the same people, a part of the care facility. Can you put two and two together to figure out what she's investigating? Boy, I wonder. For people who are gonna call people stupid in this story, boy, do you guys have some deduction skills.
But getting back to the plot, Grace goes back and retrieves the notebook and disc that her mom hid behind the painting, which, sure is lucky that it was still there all these years later instead of being destroyed by the massive fire.
First of all, the fire didn't even burn the whole hotel. There were areas of the hotel that were not even touched by the fire that we can see as we go through the hotel. And the hotel has been abandoned ever since. So, no, it's not really lucky that it's still there. The next part of his video is literally just plot summary stuff that I don't need to respond to, and a criticism that I also brought up in my Resident Evil review where Leon is out of character in a scene in the beginning of the game. So I either don't have anything to respond to or I agree, so I'm just going to be skipping to the next part.
But he's then immediately confronted by Victor and knocked out. This scene is pretty hilarious because At the start of Leon noticing Victor's there, he's got quite a bit of distance between himself and Victor, but instead of, shooting him or taking a step back and raising his gun, he bum rushes Victor with his gun out, and Victor immediately grabs him and puts him in a chokehold.
I mean, I also have a problem with this scene, but I think you criticized the wrong reason. First of all, Leon is standing there because he's just genuinely not scared of Victor. And two, he doesn't bum rush him. He literally stands in the same spot and pulls out his pistol and gets speed blitzed by Victor. My problem with this scene is the power scaling that, Leon is so overpowered here and can't do anything, but then later in the scene, or at a later scene, he can just overpower Victor. So I do think it's a power scaling issue here, but what they said, it's like, no, it's not an issue. It's completely in character for Leon to act this way.
And throughout this entire segment, Victor allows Grace to wander the care center filled with all of these dangerous zombies. And I have to ask, it's clear that he thinks she's the key, so why would he allow this? He's got cameras set up all over this clinic, so it's not like she could exactly hide from him.
It's also crazy that he sees this girl that's 110 pounds soaking wet and then thinks she'll be fine in a zombie apocalypse all by herself.
So this is another criticism I do agree with, and again, it's also something that I brought up in my review, that Victor just kind of allows Grace to escape despite needing her alive. I think the only justification really that the story kind of gives is that, like, Victor is so confident that, like, this is the destiny, or this is his destiny, and that it won't go wrong, which is why he doesn't really care that much. I don't really think it makes him look stupid necessarily, I just think it makes him look ignorant, which is one of his character flaws in the game, but at the same time, it is a little silly for him to just not be safe here and just capture her again instead of just, like, giving her the chance to run away. I do think it's a little flimsy, which is why I partially agree with the criticism.
But speaking of Grace later finds a little girl named Emily in a cell, and there's a man outside the cell who is bleeding out, who with his last final dying breath warns her not to get close to the girl. And yet again, we have a scene that exposes Grace as an absolute idiot. I mean, somehow she's an FBI tech analyst, yet she has to ask the girl if she's blind, despite seeing her cataracts and reading in Braille.
Cataracts. You can't see, can you?
Okay, so this is one part of their criticism of Grace's character that just shows they don't really understand, like, her writing at all. She's not literally asking the question, can she see or not, because she doesn't know the answer. She's asking because she's a socially awkward person, and it's her way of trying to get comfortable in conversation with her.
Grace somehow doesn't notice the dead body or the giant hole in the ceiling of the roof that appears later on, and she doesn't even realize later that the doll in Marie's room is the same doll in the girl's dungeon in the basement, meaning that the girl that was next to Emily's cell transformed into a monster, meaning that Emily will probably transform into a monster at some point. Does she care about any of this? No, never.
Well, anyone with a pulse could see what was going to happen to Emily, except for Grace. She's only an FBI intelligence analyst, though, so I guess, putting the pieces together is just a little too tough for her.
Okay, so this is just yet again them being disingenuous about Grace's character. If you watch the scene where she goes into Emily's cell, she is hesitant and literally asks her, why did they put her in here?
Hey. Why did they put you in there?
However, she thinks that she needs her right now, so it's a bit of risk assessment to take her out of it because she thinks she needs her help. But this is going to lead into their next criticism, which I also have a problem with.
Dude, and what makes it even more ridiculous is Grace goes out of her way to endanger Emily for literally no reason, because she's stupid. So the final medallion puzzle, where you have to press the sun, star, or moon keys, that puzzle, the last one, is in Braille with no symbols above it. And for some reason, Grace decides to carry Emily to it so that she can read it. Once she gets the final medallion to leave the clinic, the girl busts through the wall, and this is where you see that she has healing powers. And this girl grabs Emily and descends into the basement. Now, it's important to note that Grace endangered Emily here for genuinely no reason. If the expert FBI tech analyst had paid attention, she would have realized that every machine uses Braille and that all she would have to do is write it down or memorize the Braille under each one of the symbols of the boxes and just use it on the last one where the symbols weren't present. That's all she had to do.
Okay, so I'm sure some of you have already probably thought the same thing after hearing that, but just to put this into perspective, me, playing Grace's sections in this game, not even being in the same stressful situation as her. Like, you can, if you do play the game, like I said in my review, you can kind of feel just as stressed as Grace, but you're not literally in the same situation as Grace. So if I felt stressed playing the damn video game as her, where my life isn't in danger, but hers actually is, then I can only imagine how it is for Grace, seeing this final puzzle box, seeing that it's in Braille, and not immediately thinking, oh, well, all the other puzzle boxes had Braille on them as well. Because I didn't even notice that until they said this in this video. Like, I didn't even notice the other puzzle boxes had Braille on them. I was just looking at the symbols that I needed to type in. So expecting her to think super logically like this, instead of just thinking, hey, wait, I know that there's a little girl over here that I literally saw reading Braille earlier. I could use her to help me get out. It's like, it's a genuine mistake, even if there are other options that she could have taken to get this last medallion. And it's this mistake that she suffers for and impacts her character arc in a meaningful way, which they're gonna say later in the video, Emily has no meaningful impact on this game's story, blah, 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 blah. But let's continue with their video.
And she fights through a bunch of zombies on her way there, because she rides down this elevator to a hidden lab that Victor has, and she overhears that Victor wants her because she's the key to some bioweapon called Elpis. He then gets word on a radio about something, and after receiving it, decides to set the facility to self-destruct. And I have to wonder, don't you think you want to make sure you actually have Grace securely in your possession, and that she hasn't already been killed by zombies before you just blow up your fancy lab?
Isn't it also the tiniest bit suspicious that your elevator, you know, your secret elevator that brings the entire room down is not in the place that you left it?
Okay, so there's two things to respond to here. One, the point about him not having Grace, so why would he blow up his lab? And two, how does he not get suspicious by the fact that the elevator is moved? So for the first thing, Grace has no relevance to this lab whatsoever. Him destroying this lab is completely irrelevant to Grace. He sees it as useless research because he thinks Grace is the key. So whether Grace is alive or dead, this lab still serves no purpose anymore. The second thing in regards to why is he not suspicious, for all we know, Victor has other people that have access to this lab. And in the frenzy that he just caused at his care facility, any person could have moved this elevator. So if we go under that logic, I don't know why he would have any reason to believe that, oh, Grace might be down there, or someone who's not supposed to be down there might be down there. It's like literally anybody that he allows down there could have been down there.
Grace eventually gets the key, leaves the facility, gives it to the pilot, and they take off in the helicopter. But before they do, the zombies latch onto it, and not soon after they're in the air, the zombies actually break through the window and cause them to crash. And Grace doesn't even shoot the zombies once they break the glass, allowing them to grab the pilot.
Bro, for all we know, Grace has no bullets in her gun. Hell, I'm sure some people playing this section didn't have any bullets in their gun by the end of it. And she's also using the other flight controls to try and keep the helicopter in the air. Like, what is this criticism?
The way this scene is shot is crazy because the helicopter hits a tree on the way down, and this thing defies all the laws of physics to turn itself at a 90-degree angle and teleport through the pilot's heart just for this, you know, crazy moment of fear with the pilot being killed. It's so dumb.
Bro, what the fuck are you talking about with the way this scene is shot? We can barely even see anything as the helicopter is crashing. I don't even know, like, how you can even determine the laws of physics were broken because they crashed into a tree and it impaled the pilot. Like, what even is this point? Like, and why are we talking about the laws of physics in the fucking Resident Evil universe?
The girl pursues Grace and Emily down there, and Grace eventually is able to open a hatch, which shines light down on the girl and kills her. But just after this happens, Emily suddenly mutates into a giant, crazy-looking flesh monster, and Leon kills her before she can attack Grace and Leon. Now, this is where it gets wild. Grace is so mad at Leon for killing the giant flesh monster that she gives him back his magnum and immediately just soys out and leaves. And this scene simultaneously shows how retarded both Grace and Leon are in this game, because Grace is enraged that Leon killed Emily, but keep in mind, she just killed the other little girl, whose name is Marie. That giant monster, that was also a little girl. Like, this is peak woman logic, where she's pissed at Leon for killing Emily's monster form, but she just killed another little girl who had transformed into a monster 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, but the story has already shown she's retarded, so she never puts it together, so she doesn't have to feel bad about it.
Ah, yes, peak woman logic. Like, what? The fact that you can't see the blatant difference between Grace killing the girl and then Grace watching Emily turn into a monster is just laughable. First of all, Grace has no connection to the girl. She had no previous emotional attachment to the girl before she turned into a monster, and she also doesn't feel like it's her fault that the girl turned into a monster. That happened before she even got there. And she's also not even really mad at Leon, she's more mad at herself because she feels like she's responsible for putting Emily in this situation, and she feels like she's responsible that she was turned. But yeah, that gosh darn woman logic, like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Or where's the sympathy for my boy Chunk?
I mean, he is kind of just a victim, to be honest.
He's another one of Victor's experiments. He didn't ask for this.
And they're laughing at him. My boy's in pain and we're laughing.
They quite literally never laugh at him. I don't even know what the fuck this point is. Now, they could be joking, but, like, besides the point, they're joking while simultaneously trying to make Grace seem like a moron and a dumbass and like a bad person. So it's just like, what?
But getting back to this scene, as Grace is walking away from Leon in anger, she walks down a hallway and a small flight of steps, and at the top of the stairs, Victor's there to greet her, and then he opens a big hangar door to reveal a new villain we haven't seen before named Zeno. They inform Grace that she's the key to Elpis, and she just goes with them without question, despite having been choked, kidnapped, and bound to a table with her blood being drawn. Grace is an irredeemable retard unfit to work at McDonald's, much less the FBI.
I think the only irredeemable retard here is you, I can't lie. They make it blatantly clear right here that Grace has just basically given up after what she just caused to happen to Emily. Also, what else is she supposed to do? She cannot do anything. She has to go with them.
And it doesn't help that the way this scene is shot, Leon is literally in earshot while this conversation goes down. There's absolutely no chance that he didn't hear and see the hangar door open and see the villains just standing there.
And let's presume that he didn't see the hangar door open. Let's presume he didn't see anything. How could he have missed the helicopter? That's what I want to know. Are you
Yeah, those
deaf
things
too?
tend to be pretty loud.
This is also made even dumber because when we get a cut to black and we now shift over to playing as Leon, Leon is now driving his Porsche to Raccoon City and is on the phone with Sherry talking about rescuing Grace. You know, the woman he just let walk away with the bad guys? I mean, he's willing to risk everything to rescue Grace, but just lets her leave. No problem.
These guys sure like to say, with the way this scene was shot, and then follow it up with one of the dumbest statements you could possibly say. Yes, with the way the scene is shot, we see that there is a cut between where Grace was and then where she ended up right in front of Gideon. Meaning, we do not even know how far she walked away from Leon for him to even be able to see this or hear this like you say. Also, the last time we see Leon, he's on his knees coughing up blood because of his infection, which is why he didn't follow Grace. And there's nothing saying that he didn't hear the helicopter. For all we know, he was going to go help, but they already left by the time he got to where they were. Because again, we don't know how far Grace got away from him.
When Leon gets to Raccoon City, he finds dead BSAA soldiers and grabs the chip out of one of their intact helmets and connects it to his phone. Now, the video shows that they were there for Elpis and were all killed by Zeno. Now, in the footage, Zeno's gun is melting people. This dude has the bloody mess perk from Fallout. He is turning people into Mountain Dew Code Red. And yet somehow, the dude who had the camera installed in his helmet gets shot in the face, and even though Zeno's gun can make someone's entire torso disappear, this guy's camera is perfectly fine. But whatever, small point, whatever.
Yeah, I agree, this part's a little weird. Does it really have any meaningful implications on the story? No. The only thing it really shows is just like Leon seeing how threatening Zeno is, which he already would have known about and seen like later in the story anyway, so it just doesn't really matter. So it's kind of just a nitpick with the story.
When Leon manages to assemble his detonator, he drives the motorcycle through the gate and is confronted by Victor, who tries to kill him with a rocket launcher, which, why? I mean, earlier in the story, Victor has endless opportunities to kill Leon, but he doesn't. He takes him captive. So why now all of a sudden do you want to kill him? Are we supposed to believe that he kept Leon alive for genuinely no reason? just so that he could kill him later? What is the point of this?
First of all, he doesn't have endless opportunities to kill Leon. He has one opportunity to kill Leon. And in that one opportunity, he doesn't just kill him immediately because he's trying to pry him for information. He literally says, you're an investigator, so investigate. He's trying to figure out what Leon knows, hence the reason for him not killing him earlier in the story.
Now, as the motorcycle chase continues, it eventually ends with Leon and Victor gun jousting, resulting in Victor's death. Now, admittedly, there's a lot of over-the-top stuff in this game that felt so forced that it wasn't charming. And I hate to say it, but this was a rare case of the Tard Kino.
That's a great word for it.
That's what one of the fellows in our stream lovingly dubbed it, was Tard Kino, and it fits. It really does fit. It was a charming moment.
One of the rare ones in this. And by the way, Kodo isn't exaggerating when he said that they motorcycle joust. Both of these guys have guns, by the way. They line up at opposite ends of the road and drive at each other in a straight line and don't shoot till they're like an inch away from each other. And Victor still somehow misses all his shots. It's just insane.
Keep in mind also, Victor has a massive gash in his gas tank because Leon stuck his hatchet in it. And it's like, well, get off the motorcycle, you tard. What are you doing?
Yep. He ends up rolling off the bridge with his motorcycle to his death.
Yeah, and then, well, his death, air quotes, because everyone just kind of magically comes back to life except for Timmy Wesker.
Okay, so first of all, I'm not gonna act like this scene isn't over the top and like kind of silly. Based on the games that I've played, this is just kind of normal for Resident Evil, but I do want to talk about their criticisms of the scene. So first of all, Victor doesn't even really miss his shots. Like, you can literally take damage. You see yourself taking damage in the clip that you literally show. However, Leon will not just die to a gunshot, and also, he can dodge bullets. We literally see it happen. And as for him staying on the bike despite the gas tank being slashed, yes, I know you're unaware because you're just not good at following character traits, but Victor has an ego. He doesn't care. He's not stupid, he's ignorant. And this is one of the examples where ignorance really isn't a problem in the story. And I like how he says, oh, he magically comes back to life. Bro, what the fuck do you mean magically comes back to life? He's infected by the fucking Nemesis parasite. What do you mean?
And speaking of Timu Wesker, Zeno reveals to Grace that she was created and that clones were made of her, but that she is the original. Now, right after he says this, you have that flashback scene that we mentioned earlier where you play as a little girl that's potentially a lab creation. And this scene creates far more questions than it answers, particularly surrounding Grace and how she could possibly be the original, because Chloe, who we play as in this scene, was already alive in 1990, and Grace wasn't even born until the early 2000s. Now, Zeno's obviously mistaken here, but how is he such a moron that he doesn't realize Grace can't be the original when he's literally looking at the file of a supposed clone of Grace from the year 1990?
Keep in mind, Grace was a teenager in 2018. So, the timeline here, it ain't adding up. It ain't mathing.
This is likely because Zeno is just following Victor's word. I'm not even sure Zeno is aware of how old Grace is. The game makes it clear that he is just following Victor's research because Victor is far more knowledgeable in the shit than him. So it stands to reason that he wouldn't really question this because he wouldn't know.
Leon stumbles upon Grace and Zeno having this conversation, but before he can really confront them, he gets interrupted by Mr. X, whom he promptly kills before descending into the entrance of Ark. He also kills Hunk while he is down here too, because, you know, we can't go 5 seconds without having a callback to better games.
Yeah, this game is shamelessly filled with member berries that have absolutely no substance. I mean, this includes Mr. X, Hunk, the gun shop, and the cop there from Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Well, these things are just thrown on screen and shoved in your face. It's just straight up key jingling. It's like, hey, remember these cool things from the old games you liked? No reason for them to really be there. Just, oh, flashback, without any substantive payoff.
Ah, yes, my favorite kind of criticism, fan service equal bad. First of all, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, or it's just like, oh, this game is filled with just countless bits of fan service and blah, 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 blah. It's like, bro, if there's some small Easter eggs and stuff that calls back to previous games, or even the Mr. X thing, which I thought was pretty cool, and fits within this game, then, like, what is the problem? And even the Hunk thing, it's like, yeah, sure, there's not really any writing substance in the story for him, but this is very obviously actually something that later games will probably expand upon, which is what happens with other things in this game as well, like Chris. It's like, what? I just don't see what the issue is. And like specifically with like the thing with like the cop who puts you on like the Easter egg hunt, I think that's a pretty good level design, or adds to that level design. I don't see what the problem is there. Or the Mr. X fight, while I do wish it was more challenging, and it is more challenging on the Insanity difficulty, it was still a good boss fight. And the Hunk fight as well was also a good fight. So it's just like what is the I don't see what is such a big issue here. What is the issue at all?
But moving on, Leon finds Zeno trying to get Grace to give him the password to unlock Elpis, and Grace reveals multiple times that she doesn't know the password. Now, Leon's brilliant plan to escape the small platform that he, Grace, and Timu Wesker are on is to shoot a piece of machinery that causes the entire arm to come crashing down. He and Grace then jump onto it as it's crashing into the abyss, but luckily they happen to land on the tiny moving platform that safely and miraculously takes them to a small garbage dump before passing out.
In the moment, it just seemed like you wanted to die, but somehow you just knew that platform was going to be there.
So can you give me a better option that Leon can take in this situation? No, you can't, because there's literally he has no other choice but to do this. And also, if he's looking around the room while speaking to Zeno, then he could see the platform circling the area that he's in. It's like, yet again, another brain-dead criticism.
You know what's also amazing? Is that it's revealed that Leon is dying from stage 3 T-virus. If you've read the notes, you'll realize that at stage 3 T-virus, you have like 2 hours to live. So Leon is like as dead could possibly be.
Okay. I don't really know what the point of you saying this was. Leon's not like other people. For a point of comparison, Batman in the Arkham series performs feats and gets injected with fear toxin that would kill any normal human being. But Batman, and also Leon Kennedy, are not normal humans. This is a common trope that happens with many human protagonists throughout stories. They are allowed to be unrealistic, and they are allowed to have human characters be a step above other human characters.
So Grace decides she's going to delve further into Ark and discover what Alyssa had hidden from her in the beginning of the game. Now, she learns that Spencer had come to regret his actions and adopted Grace.
And after she watches this footage from the past with her mom and Spencer, Grace sees that Leon has made his way back to Zeno, and they group up and confront Zeno together. Grace again says to Leon right before this, when they're alone,
I don't know the password.
So you can't even say, oh, well, she lied to Zeno about not knowing the password. She's completely sincere here talking to Leon. And also keep in mind that she is working under the presumption that Elpis is a mind control weapon and that any wrong password will destroy it forever. Because remember, Victor and Zeno have been telling her that is what the purpose of Elpis is for, because that's what they believe it to be. And for reasons unbeknownst to us, the canon ending in this game is that Grace chooses not to destroy Elpis, but to release it to this psychotic murderer based on a hunch that Hope must be the correct password because she happened to hear Spencer and Alyssa use the word in that video footage that she saw earlier.
Please know that you are my hope.
She is my hope. A blind hope.
Okay. This is it.
And her reasoning being, well, Spencer regretted what he did. Now, Grace has been shown to be just a complete moron throughout the campaign, yet in this scene, she becomes omniscient. She not only guesses the correct password based on a whim, but she then instantly realizes that Elpis is an antiviral and not a weapon, despite zero evidence to point her towards that.
It is insane to me that you say this with so much confidence. What the fuck do you mean with zero evidence? There's so much wrong with this criticism, it's insane. First of all, I want to talk about how this moment is a, character arc moment for Grace, who throughout the game has been unsure of herself, and then finally, by the end of the game, takes control and puts trust in her instincts to make a decision which she feels is right. And the way she comes to this conclusion is seeing the creator of the damn virus say that Grace is his hope, and that the word Elpis comes from from the Greek god of hope, and you're telling me she has no evidence to believe that this is the password, or that this is the correct thing to do, while Spencer is literally talking about his regrets when it comes to how he conducted his experiments.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
My research opened Pandora's box, unleashing disaster upon the world.
Except Elpis, the goddess of hope? Or so the myth goes.
A blind hope.
What do you mean?
Humans cannot predict when death will come for them. This is why they have hope. I was wrong, and I am plagued by guilt. Happiness cannot be achieved at the expense of others. Oh, oh, oh.
Oh. Who is that? Is that one of your subjects?
Of course not. She was alone in the world. I took her in to make amends.
Is she
perfectly normal? Just an average child needing a home. She is my hope.
What's her name?
Grace. I only hope it serves as a requiem for those who have passed.
Elpis is Spencer's atonement. It's an antiviral.
Like, the word hope is mentioned so many damn times in this, like, not only this video, but throughout this game with Grace, whether it's her mom or Spencer, that I think you would genuinely have to go to the hospital if you took a shot every time the word was mentioned. Not to mention, what other option does she have? She either types in the password she thinks is correct, and if it's correct, it confirms her theory that it's an antiviral and Spencer's atonement, and Leon can get cured, or she types in the password hope and Elpis gets destroyed. Like, holy shit, actual genius is making this video.
She even tries to interrupt Zeno from injecting himself despite knowing this. Had Zeno listened to her tell him that it was an antiviral, he wouldn't have injected himself and lost his powers and would have just killed them both on the spot.
Okay, first of all, why would she think that Zeno would believe her? Second of all, she says this in response to Leon asking what is she doing, then, probably in her excitement that she finally took control and did something good for once, at least from her perspective, tries to explain herself to Leon only to get interrupted, then she lets Zeno inject himself with it, and then explains to him what it actually is. What are we talking about?
It's also revealed later on that there was no connection between Grace and Emily, meaning that Emily was a giant nothing burger of a character that served no purpose aside from extending the game's runtime and giving Grace a dumb excuse to go with the villains and to move the plot forward.
Yeah, the only reason you think she's a nothing burger of a character that serves no purpose and that Grace was given a dumb excuse just to go with the villains just proves that you were not paying attention to what Grace's character arc is in the game. I mean, that was already proven, but like, Jesus.
Victor, upon seeing all this idiocy, marvels at Spencer's genius because he realized that Spencer's endgame was to create anarchy by causing the world's order to be thrown into chaos. And after that, Victor rightly calls Timu Wesker an imitation and promptly kills him, showing that his arc was, well, nothing. Genuinely nothing. Zeno is a wet fart of a character. He accomplished nothing and served no purpose.
And that is not an exaggeration. His entire story arc in this game is meaningless. Here's what he does in this game. First time you see him, he kills a bunch of soldiers to establish he's this big, dangerous threat. He dodges a bunch of Leon's bullets when they're on the platform together, Wesker style, to, I guess, aura farm and let you know how powerful he is instead of just killing him. He has no backstory. He adds absolutely nothing new to the lore. He doesn't even have a boss fight. And then his final moments in the campaign are him injecting himself with Elpis, having no clue what it does, losing his powers because of it, and then dies unceremoniously to the other lame, underdeveloped, stupid villain.
Okay, so first of all, I do just want to say, I do think Zeno, as a character, doesn't have any depth, like himself, but to the story's credit, there is one interesting thing that Zeno being in the story accomplishes, thematically at least. Like, Zeno's whole thing is about him, you know, being powerful and having control. That's why he wants the mind control virus. And it's a nice opposite parallel to Grace being, you know, the complete opposite of that, someone who's relatively powerless and and feels like she has no control over her life, but it's her growing as a character and taking control that stops Xeno from winning, and stops another person dying because of her being Leon. That is the only thing I think is interesting about Xeno's, like, implementation in this story. So I will say that, yeah, Xeno's character has no depth, but saying he serves no purpose in the story, it's like, obviously he serves a purpose, just look at what he does in the story. There's a very clear reason why he's there. Now, you can correctly criticize that he doesn't have any depth, and especially the boss fight thing too, he should have had a boss fight, but saying he serves no purpose, it's like, bro, you literally just explained what he did in the story. It's like, obviously he has a purpose, even if the character himself is not very good. But they also say that Victor is an underdeveloped, stupid character, which is just like, no, he's not underdeveloped at all. How is he underdeveloped? They literally don't explain that at all. And then your only instance of him being stupid, quote unquote, is just him being pretty careless and ignorant about Grace roaming through the facility earlier in the game. This doesn't really mean that he's a bad character for the entirety of the game. He's actually really interesting. And I explained why I think his character is interesting in my review, so I'm not really going to repeat that. You can go watch that, but yeah.
Grace uses Elpis on Leon to cure him, and Victor just stands back monologuing because, you know, if he were to do the sensible thing and kill Grace and Leon, the game would be over, but we can't have that. He has clearly read the script and knows what to do here.
I mean, the way he's acting after he, you know, kind of stabs Grace and then destroys Elpis, it's like completely in character for how we've seen him throughout the rest of the game. He has an ego and he is arrogant. He destroys the platform, it comes crashing down with Grace and Leon on it, and then tries to kill Leon. Like, sure, he could just try and kill them instantly here, but that would be pretty off-putting considering how we've seen him act throughout the rest of the game when it comes to how he's interacted with Grace and Leon previously.
After Leon takes care of Victor, Grace and Leon are stranded at the bottom of the ark for, I kid you not, maybe 60 seconds before magical plot device man Chris Redfield sends in his troops to rescue them. It's kind of reminiscent of how he just kind of shows up with a tank in Village there towards the end.
He's been relegated to kind of just doing stuff.
Well, I can respect a man who gets things done.
Well, that's not exactly what he does. He just shows up and something crazy happens.
I mean, it makes complete sense that Chris would show up. We see in Village that he's been tracking threats like this, and his men were literally killed in Raccoon City. I don't see why it's a surprise that he shows up. Like,
after they're saved by Chris, Emily, you know, the little girl who turned into a big flesh monster that Leon blasted repeatedly with his magnum earlier, she's somehow not dead and gets adopted by Grace to live a happy life. So much for any consequences in this game. And Leon's explanation to Grace about how Emily might just make it is that when he was shooting, he missed her vitals.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
That.
Okay, whatever. Uncle. I don't know what to say. I'm befuddled.
I can only be speechless so many times of trying to come up with some dumb, clever thing to say about just how moronic everything in this game is.
You would think surely there's a plot point that has some logical narrative flow to it, but it's nothing. Throw crap at the wall, and I guess whatever slides down first, that's what we go with? I don't know.
I mean, like, I can understand that there's no lasting consequences with the story, but, like, she was a consequence. It's just Grace got rewarded for her character progressing. And I personally don't mind the fact that there's a happy ending, especially because I think the ending to Grace's arc was satisfying. And just because there's no lasting consequences, that doesn't really mean that it's a bad ending. That's not exactly a requirement to make a great story. I personally think that the happy ending fits best because this whole story is about characters struggling with those lasting consequences that happened from their past, like Grace's mom dying and all the people that Leon feels like he failed to save. So the fact that both characters by the end of the story get some redemption and some hope by the end of the story, I think is a very fitting ending. And in regards to them thinking it doesn't make sense that, like, Leon disabled Emily instead of killing her, which they say he was blasting her with his magnum when he didn't even have his magnum at that point in the story. He was just using a regular pistol. But besides the point, it's like, what about it doesn't make sense? He didn't shoot her in vital organs, and she was just disabled, not killed. I'm lost on how that doesn't make sense.
It'd be a lot more tolerable if the game and its writers knew how stupid and inept they are, but I truly fear a lot of people are just gonna slurp this story up as a masterpiece.
Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. It is what it is.
Well, even though I think the story is very good, not necessarily a masterpiece, I just think it's very good. It's probably the best Resident Evil story we have. You guys haven't exactly done a very good job of explaining why it's not a good story.
But before we end, I really want to hammer home that on top of how stupid the story is and the characters are, it also retcons possibly the most important character in the entire Resident Evil franchise, which is Oswald Spencer. It not only paints him out as having a change of heart towards the end of his life in the video that Grace watches, but Grace's report after the events of the game come out and say that many people testified that he was a senile old man at the end of his life. Now, we know that neither of those things is true from his death scene in the Resident Evil 5 Lost in Nightmares DLC. I mean, his final words is him lamenting to Wesker about facing his mortality despite his old age. And he is very lucid throughout this whole cutscene.
I was to become a god. Creating a new world with an advanced race of human beings.
Does this sound like a man who is senile in the slightest? I mean, him and Wesker go back and forth in that scene before Wesker kills him.
Okay, now this is the final thing I want to talk about. First of all, if someone is senile, that doesn't mean they are literally incapable of having this kind of conversation. It is associated with severe memory loss and cognitive function, but that doesn't mean he's incapable of having this conversation with Wesker. It also doesn't mean he's incapable of remembering literally basically his entire life's existence and, purpose. But I want to talk about this retcon a little bit more because the term retcon is often used in a negative connotation, but a retcon is basically just a recontextualization, and I think Resident Evil Requiem, based on what I know about Spencer, having not played Resident Evil 5, because from what I can tell from those games and the lore that I've watched YouTube videos on and read wikis about, there's not much about Spencer's character that's interesting, if at all. Like, he still has the goal of, elevating the human race and, basically the eugenics, but this game expands more on that and, why he believes that, based on his own life experiences. And the scene with Wesker doesn't even necessarily contradict, him regretting how he exactly went about going for his goal. He can still believe that he was supposed to be a god and he was supposed to revitalize humanity and, all that, while at the same time acknowledging that, the methods he went about doing it were flawed. I'm sure if they remake Resident Evil 5, that scene's gonna play out a little bit differently to get more across that message, but I don't necessarily think there's enough proof within that one cutscene and even just previous lore documents that this was necessarily out of character for Spencer. And even if you could show me something that maybe I'm just not aware of within the lore of Resident Evil that does contradict it, because I know that cutscene sure as hell doesn't, then even still, I personally still wouldn't really say it's, I wouldn't take much issue with it because, again, based on what I know, Spencer's just not a very interesting character in previous games. And I think this game does a very good job at making him an interesting character and elaborating on his goals and why he wants to achieve those goals, as well as his reconciliation being basically a big fuck you that can either be used for good or can be used for someone to hold power over people wanting this antivirus. And I do like that they do make it pretty ambiguous whether or not his intention with Elpis was either the former or the latter. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that specifically. But yeah, that's gonna be the end of their story critique of the game. Overall, I think it's very bad, even if there's some points I agree with. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say. I appreciate you all for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah.